Alright guys, today I'm giving you a review of the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra 1 year later. The 26 Ultra is now out. It is April 9th, 2026. Yes, newer is better, obviously higher chipset and performance, but newer means more money. And so I make these reviews because honestly guys, phones are not as exciting as they used to be. And you can get phones that are 3 years, 2 years, and even 1 year and save a lot of money while still getting good, reliable performance. More importantly, too, though, a lot of people are only reviewing these at the time of release. And when we look at these phones 1 year later or older, we get a real more honest look at how they hold up. So, my intention is to give these reviews later so that you can see if the brand that you go for is reliable and also see if it's worth your money and how it stacks up with the competitors, when the phone released. So, disclaimer now, as I always do, this phone, about my own money, I'm not sponsored. Receipts on hand, let's go. There's some messaging there. So, the reason why you saw some messaging there is because I did it through a trade through a second marketplace called uh, OfferUp. Now, I do have to mention if you are going to buy through the second stores, Facebook Marketplace, OfferUp, Back Market, be really careful on how you buy. Always try to go for high rated sellers because you do run the risk of getting phones blacklisted. And that's always a risk, but the higher, more reputable a seller is, then less chance that may occur. So just be very careful on how you buy, guys. But nonetheless, now let's look at this beautiful phone, the S25 Ultra. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this chart where I'm going to be kind of going into areas of a phone that I think you should look for. Because honestly, guys, I could rate the phone on so many things: the speakers, the screen size, and all these other things. But some of it's subjective, and so rather than try to look at things that are subjective, meaning I'm going to rate it low because I don't like the design, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to give you what I think matters most for when you choose the phone. I am still going to mention some of these, but I won't rank them, just for your knowledge. So, going off a list of the phones that would compete for this um, S25 Ultra, we have the Oppo Find X8 Ultra, the Pixel 10 Pro XL, and the OnePlus 15, the Vivo X200 Ultra, and then the Xiaomi 15 Ultra. And I don't have all these phones on hand, guys, but I will just say Oppo Find X8 Ultra, I have not used that one, but I have used the base model, the Find X8, so I have an idea of how that OS works and the long-term performance of that phone. I've used Pixels quite long enough. This is a 10 Pro XL here on the table, so I feel confident in knowing how that one has held up. And I've used the Vivo X200 Ultra for some time. I've sold it. This right here on the table is a Vivo 100 X100 Ultra. So I'm very knowledgeable on how that phone has held up. And then also the Xiaomi 15 Ultra. I have not used the Ultra model, but I did use the Xiaomi 15, and I'm familiar with how that OS has grown over time and what to expect. So as you see on the chart, you're going to see when they were released. All these vary upon when they release. Looks like the Samsung is like the earliest, and then you have the OnePlus being later. So not ranking just yet. Now, as far as screen size goes, that's going to be dependent on what you like. But where the Samsung stands, it is the tallest phone. And I'll be honest, I like a small phone sometimes, but I really like the design of the Samsung. A lot of people like the 24 Ultra sometimes better because they say that this is a little too boxy, but I like both designs. Amongst the other competitors, I'd say I'd rather go for the Samsung design, even as boring as this camera island is. You know, the the Vivo and the Xiaomi are curved screen devices, and so you run the risk of just getting damage to the screen. So don't really like those curved screens. So Samsung, I would say the design is pretty good. The Pixel flat screen, I would the backside, honestly, though, much more eye-catching, beautiful. But you pick and choose as you desire. But not a bad design of the Samsung, just kind of all right, you know. Okay, now the fun part. I've tried to do a ranking system here, so now we're going to get into the categories where I'm going to try ranking these phones all across the board so that I can determine a winner. And I've kind of already done this on the side, but I'll explain my reasoning why I am going to give these points. So there are 6 phones that we're rating, and the highest points being number 6, and then one being the lowest point. So I've really tried to stick to a system where you cannot use a point uh, anymore more than once. Really trying to force me to allocate points you know the best way I can. I don't know. So we'll see how it looks like, and if you don't like the system, then whatever, but I'm doing my best. So, plus, it's my rank. So, let's start on the updates. So, I'm going to rank the updates very differently, unlike other people, because people will just say a number and say, oh, that's the best, right? Now, if we look at the chart, you'll see that the Samsung and the Google both offer 7 OS and security updates. And then so that would be number one if you're going off just the number. And then after that we have the Oppo going, maybe I want to say second place, with giving you 5 OS and then 6 security updates. And then next we have Xiaomi, 4 OS updates, 6 security, and then OnePlus matches that, and then lastly the Vivo's in last place. Now, if we're just looking at that at first glance, um, this is where I think it would be kind of disingenuous, not really true, to just look at the number of updates. And so, if I were to rank these, I would say it's also important to consider what it is you're getting out of the update, meaning what features are you getting, and is that update going to slow down your phone? Updates have generally shown that after some time, the phone's going to be kind of sluggish. And so that's why it's important to consider those things to really give a ranking, that's going to be just. So if I would have to say who's the best, Samsung, no doubt. I would give it the highest, meaning it gets 6 points here. One UI, year and year after year after year, it's just giving you so much updates. I don't use Samsung as my preferable choice, but I gotta give it where credit is due. Samsung UI feature packed like crazy. Um, the way you can just stack the widgets, um, certain phones are getting that, but Samsung's able to do it across not just their own apps, but other apps as well. Security folder. Other phones have this as their own version of security. Pixel has its privacy dashboard, which honestly I like better. But security folder is a good feature here because you can isolate your apps. Meaning, if you want delay of notifications for certain apps, or just want to hide things for security reasons, I think it's a really good tool. So there's that. Samsung Dex. Oh my goodness. I love Samsung Dex. Samsung Dex, the ability to use your phone on desktop mode wirelessly or through wired connection. Very underrated. I think honestly, Samsung Dex to me is a more better feature than the S Pen. Um, I find when I use the S Pen, it's mostly just for like AI selection and sharing some images. But I would say Samsung Dex is just so much more useful than the S Pen, and that's really the reason why I would go for a Samsung is for the Samsung DeX modes and routines. Beautiful, wonderful feature if you like automation. Um, these other phones, the Pixel has it. Pixel has some modes and routines. Or at least they have it, but it's bare bones, guys. It's nothing like Samsung. I feel like Samsung's modes and routines reminds me a little bit of Apple's iPhone shortcuts, the shortcuts, Apple shortcuts. But the Pixel doesn't even compare to Samsung modes and routines. Um, what else? This phone can also do wireless power sharing. There's a lot of features that are, that are just nice to have, but notably the ones that I mentioned are the DeX mode, the modes of routines, the secure folder, the stackable widgets. Um, those are going to be killer features. I mean, the Galaxy AI also, guys, um, it's amazing. I mean, I feel like Pixel likes to market itself as it's the best, AI phone, and it's getting there. But in my opinion, I think Samsung Galaxy AI is just more useful to you as the user. Um, you get integrated call features while the Pixel does have that. I think the Pixel does it better. The recorder can transcribe. All these phones nowadays can do the transcription. Pixel, I don't like it because the Samsung can save your transcriptions internally. You get Gemini across these two, the Pixel and the Samsung, and then but you also have Bixby. Bixby, I don't say it's like useful, but it's nice to have another assistant there. And then when you're looking at the other Chinese phones, they have maybe less. They have significantly less than Samsung. OnePlus has, I'd say, some pretty good features, but nothing like Samsung. So Samsung would be getting the most points with 6. Oppo, I would say, would get 5 points because, in my opinion, I think that the features that you get with your updates are a lot more useful than what Pixel's offering. Yes, the Pixel has great call screening features, now playing music, but what I've noticed with the Pixel is lately the updates that you get are barely any features. It's always screen interface rehauls, changing your notification center. Pixel can't make up its mind on how it wants to look. It just constantly always changing it. I don't want a wallpaper of a movie. Give me actual features. So that's why Oppo would be next with 5 points. Then I would say OnePlus gets 4 points just because it's Oppo and OnePlus are essentially kind of the same. Next, finally, I would give 3 points to the Pixel, and then next Vivo 2 points, and then Xiaomi with 1 point for updates because Xiaomi's HyperOS for some reason honestly is the new battery drainer compared to the Pixel. So that's how I would rank for updates. Chipset. So now we're looking at how the chipset is performing, and obviously this one's going to be a little bit easier because this one you can just rank and based on the highest. The most performance is going to go to the OnePlus because it has the highest, newest chipset, the 8 Elite Gen 5. Next after that, I would rank the Samsung. So 5 points to the Samsung gets the Snapdragon 8 Elite. Now, you'll see that these other Chinese phones also have an 8 Elite, but the Samsung has a unique overclocked 8 Elite, which is why it gets the 5 points. After that, I would give 4 points to the Oppo, then leaving me 3 points with the Vivo, and then 2 points to the Tensor G5. A lot of reviewers are going to constantly say, oh, but the Tensor does just fine. I'm going to call it what it is. Guys, the chip's underwhelming. Yes, as an average user, you don't need much power, but it's underwhelming. It's 2 points to the Pixel now. And then lastly, I'm going to say the Xiaomi goes last because even though it has a Snapdragon 8 Elite, as I've been mentioning, the Xiaomi's HyperOS okay, great, I got a nice chipset, but that OS just kills the battery like crazy. You're gonna feel that thing overheat. I felt my Xiaomi 15 just running hot, and also noticing that its battery health was declining kind of fast. Um, so that goes for the battery. All right, guys, I gotta squeeze this piece of the video in here because I was trying to make it a full one take, but I noticed I was getting ahead of myself. Towards the end there, I was talking about chipset rankings, and then I said it was battery. So trying to clear this up, those previous rankings, I was referring all to chipset. Now in this portion, I'm going to be covering the rankings for battery capacity and usage across the brands. And just disclaimer, like the updates, just because the number is higher doesn't always mean it is going to be the best. That often is the case, but sometimes we have to account for actual OS, operating system optimization. So I've used all these phones, and so these are the rankings as I would rank them. Uh, in this case, the 6 points actually goes to the phone with the highest milliamps, 7,300 milliamps, OnePlus 15. ColorOS, OxygenOS, at this point, they kind of are mirrors of each other. And to be honest, the only thing that probably would have beat the OnePlus 15 is if the Oppo had a higher milliamp in the phone. But in this case, the OnePlus has the higher milliamps, so 6 points to the OnePlus, which then gives 5 points to the Oppo Find X8 Ultra. Kind of like what I said already, OxygenOS, ColorOS, they're almost identical clones of these OSs, and Oppo, the company, BBK Electronics, they have really well optimized operating systems for these phones. So 5 points to the Oppo. Now next, 4 points goes to the Vivo X200 Ultra. 6,000 milliamps here. I mean, the Vivo, in my opinion, it didn't really have a lot of features, and it's probably kind of not surprising why it does so well here. I mean, I didn't feel like it was ever degrading like other phones. So I would say 4 points goes to the Vivo. Now this next one, I do want to call attention because this is where we start seeing, wait, the battery number is lower, but you're going to give this one 3 points? Yes. The Samsung S25 Ultra, I would give 3 points all over, even though the Pixel 10 Pro XL has a higher milliamp with 200 more. I give 3 points to the Samsung S25 Ultra. I'm not hating on Pixels. I actually love them. And if I'm being really, really honest, I have a love-hate relationship. Pixel, time and time and again, have this area just falling behind. Yes, it's gotten a little bit better, but I'm finding that the Pixel OS just happens to have not as good battery degradation, optimization throughout the OS. And again, it's not just because you get a higher battery, it's also having to do about the OS and the chipset. So the Tensor, there's a lot of AI that's being pushed in that phone, but it just isn't really still at a place where the phone can handle it. So 3 points goes to the Samsung. And then I would actually give 2 points to the Pixel, surprisingly here, because now we're looking at the Pixel versus the Xiaomi 15 Ultra. And would you look at the chart showing that the Xiaomi actually has higher milliamps. 15 Ultra has 5,410 milliamps, and you would almost think and say, well, that doesn't make sense. Why would you give the Pixel 2 points and now finally leaving the Xiaomi as the 1 point? Again, I never said I was a Xiaomi a Pixel hater, and I hope I can give you some honest viewpoint here, because I've used both of these, and I'm telling you, although the Pixel is having issues and battery, somehow Xiaomi is now the one that needs to get its team more work around this area, because this Xiaomi is a much battery heater than the Pixel. Surprisingly, I don't know what it is that the team's doing with HyperOS, but I found that the HyperOS on the Xiaomi is now doing worse in the battery department compared to the Pixel. Yes, it has more milliamps, but I would say 2 points to the Pixel, 1 point to the Xiaomi. Yes, you got a higher battery, but your OS is killing it, and I noticed that that thing is like a hand warmer. So until you can fix that OS, you can get that thing to 6,000, and if the problems aren't fixed, it'd be surprising to see Pixel, maybe in the next year, it say it has like 5,500, and you still see the Xiaomi beating it, but then the Xiaomi's still doing bad. So pay attention to that, guys. Just because it's a high number, it's not always a great one. Camera, camera, camera. So a lot of you guys, oh my goodness, camera is gonna be a very subjective kind of, but I'm doing my best to rank it. I'll say right off the bat, I personally go for Oppo's, but I will give it 6 points to the Vivo. I just love the cinematic DSLR look that the Vivo's produce, and not only that, it does great video. So 6 points to the Vivo, being the highest in the camera. Then next, I would go for Oppo. I love the true toned colors that Oppo gives, and it will also say that Oppo just has pretty good video as well, which is why it gets 5 points. Then I would say 4 to the Pixel. Now, Pixel, I'm gonna say 4 because it has great selfie front picture and video. The rear camera, great pictures, but that rear video is lacking. They're relying too much on AI, and the video time and time again is getting better, but it's just not competing with these other Chinese brands. So that's why 4 points for the Pixel. And then finally, the Samsung, I'm going to give you 3 points. The good all-rounder phone, yes, I would say the not my favorite, to be honest, but it's just more inconsistent. I will say though, the Samsung's gotten better at color grading. Still not true tone like the Pixel or even the Oppo, but you just have to be a little bit more patient with the camera system. And also, yeah, the video is going to be a lot better than the Pixel at times. So that's 3 points to the Samsung, and this is the segue where I will now give you some samples of just the shots, pictures, and videos that you can get with the Samsung. So enjoy that, and then we'll come back. Facing camera, S25 Ultra, UHD 60 frames per second, HD enabled. I will say it's pretty good. I don't think it gets fuzzy at times. Less grainy than the Motorola Signature. Very flat on the colors. However, it's not dramatically shifting my skin tones a lot. I mean, in sunlight exposures, it's changing me to neutral, sometimes like lighter. Let's see real quick. Satisfactory, I'd say, to be honest. I thought this would actually do a lot better than the Pixel 10 Pro XL, but I actually like the Pixel 10's front-facing video. This one gets a little fuzzy. However, still need to see what the front-facing video looks like during the evening, nighttime. UHD 60 frames per second, HDR enabled, S25 Ultra, 1x zoom, Ultra HDR on the Samsung S25 Ultra, front facing, higher frames per second, and FPS. It just does not pick up anything. It's not this dark. Still not that great front selfie. Not much light here, but still, you're saying that this is more or less the quality you get. Samsung S25 Ultra front HD. I am using the S25 Ultra. These all have their own unique issues, because here I am with UHD 60 frames per second, and it's really smooth and all, but there's a lot of purple. I mean, there's lighting here, a lamp there, this here, but it just has a lot of issues with trying to capture me. So obviously, as we've been saying, you want to reduce from Ultra HD to a lower quality, and lowering the frame rate to maybe help you reduce the issues that you get with blurriness, shades of purple, and graininess. It's hard to rank these because they all have their unique issues. Trying to boost the quality up with the S25 Ultra front selfie, FHD quality, 60 frames per second. So we are getting much better than the 4K. You're gonna have to really tweak these around a lot, these settings, when you have less light in the front, because you'll notice unique issues start to arise. More purples in the shot, maybe less light coming in, definitely hit or miss. The more darker, less you retain when you use FPS highs in the 60s and Ultra HD. So definitely recommend you to try that FHD and maybe 60 or 30, just depending on how dark it is. But here I am now with the S25 Ultra FHD 30 frames per second front selfie camera, and automatically now I see that there's a lot of more light control that it's doing better. It's not as dark, but it's still not as good. There's a lot of fuzziness to it now. But I will say though, as far as what it's capturing on the front, it's doing a lot better than the Pixel and even the Signature. Signature is the worst so far. I mean, I'd take this over the other two for sure. Yeah. UHD, 60 frames per second, HDR enabled, rear camera, S25 Ultra. Samsung's always had some pretty great video, very crisp. Here I am. Let's do a zoom in. Significant decrease in the lighting there. So it's not doing so great with zooming in, but a lot of phones nowadays are trying to do AI, so a lot of issues with that color and how it's changing. So zooming in obviously is going to be an issue. I will say that also the color is not true to life here, but there's no graininess in the video, so there's that. I mean, there's issues with some of the darkness here and there, but overall, pretty good. Camera UHD, 60 frames per second, HDR enabled with the S25 Ultra. Again, nothing exciting here, just the kitchen. It's not that late, but it is not picking up a lot of detail. Changed the exposure and now it's doing a little better. So definitely gonna have to do a lot more control. But it's looking a lot darker here than what it really is. Ultra HDR, 60 frames per second on the S25 Ultra. I do not like this quality. I mean, it's picking up detail, but it's just really bad colors. That looks yellow, the mirror right there on the wall, but it really is a brown. Let's try to reduce the quality and see if color tuning improves. Here we are with the S25 Ultra FHD, 60 frames per second, HDR enabled. Again, a little darker tonight, and so reducing the quality here, it's a little bit better, not quite still true to life. That still looks yellowish, but it does look a little bit more true. It's supposed to be like a more pale, kind of like a sandalwood brown, I would think, like a tan brown, but a little better. So now that you've seen those still on the camera, so we left off on the Samsung getting 3 points. I would say then 2 points goes to the OnePlus. I love OnePlus, but it is, you know, it's still not as good as Oppo, with Oppo getting the Hasselblad tuning. And then lastly, 1 point for the Xiaomi. I like it. I will notice a lot of more skin smoothing, and it's just also very the tone and the skin makes me look light. So yeah, pretty good camera, but I preferably would go for the other options. Xiaomi I would go for last in terms of camera. The next category is going to be long-term usage reliability. Now, when I mean this, I mean can you use this phone as a phone? You can have a great camera, right? But are you going to get band support? Are you actually going to get notifications? Is your phone actually going to be usable, you know, in the long term? Are the updates going to slow it down? That's what I mean by long-term usage reliability. So in first place, I would have to say OnePlus, being that it's a North America BBK phone. Yes, the Oppo is out there, but man, that OnePlus 15 has that 7,300 milliamp battery, much higher than the Oppo, and it really is close to 1.5 to 2 days, especially if you're not a gamer. And then second, 5 points goes to the Oppo, because it essentially is kind of using the same OS, so you don't get a lot of battery drainage there. And even with the updates lately, Oppo and OnePlus have made their software less storage, and they don't really get a lot of slowdown with the updates. 4 points, I guess, would go next to the Samsung, just because um, in the past, Samsungs have shown that the phones kind of tend to slow down with the updates. But I will say it's still a pretty good option because, you know, these phones, you could take them uh, to easily this repair centers, and it's just an all-rounder, easy phone to rely on. The Pixel, 3 points to the Pixel because as much as this phone has been improving, it still needs a lot of work. The Pixel OS has had long-term issues with battery degradation and overheating. So 3 points to the Pixel. Can't confidently say that this is a phone that you'd want to use. Also because you may be PWM sensitive. So that's just something that you want to be mindful of with the Pixel. Okay, and now we're looking at the Vivo. I would say gets you 2 points. Not much to say here on the Vivo because the Vivo, you're not going to get a lot of updates that give you features. At the same time, it's a curved screen phone, and I don't like that. Uh, Rewind. The reason why I gave the Oppo 5 points also was because it is a Chinese phone. But yeah, the Vivo is Chinese. Can't really say how it is long term. You are going to say you do lose some band usage, and you won't be able to get some, confidently usage as opposed to like the Samsung with your carrier. And then lastly, the Xiaomi curved screen, also for similar reasons as the Vivo. Your updates, I don't see HyperS doing much improvement. In fact, phones are just overheating like crazy. And then the lifespan durability, let's talk about that. I would say the 6 points goes to the Samsung, being because in North America it's the most popular. Warranty, repairability, this phone is like king out of them in North America. And then if we're talking slowdowns, Samsung in the past has shown slowdowns, but this phone has had much more improvement with the updates. Next 5 points I would say goes to the Pixel. As much as I like the OnePlus, if you were in a situation where you had a broken phone, the repairability, the warranty claims, it's just going to be easier to manage with the Pixel. So 5 points to the Pixel. Next, OnePlus, I would say 4 points, just because it is a North America phone. At the time of this recording, OnePlus has been speculative of shutting down operations. So, yeah, I mean, you're not going to maybe be able to repair or warranty those phones. So 4 points to the OnePlus. 3 to the Oppo, because it is a flat screen phone, even though it's Chinese. Doesn't run the risk of breaking it like the Vivo or the Oppo. So that's why that gets 3 points. Next, I would say 2 points for the Xiaomi on lifespan durability. And then Vivo wants 1 point on the lifespan durability. Also curved screen. So those two can honestly could be flipped, or stay the same, but it won't make a difference on the outcome, to be honest. And then lastly, the features and the OS. So talking about features, I've already kind of talked about some. Number 1, with 6 points goes to the Samsung. One UI, one UI, one UI. So many features, DeX, all that, privacy, secure folder, most features. If you want a phone that you're going to be excited about with updates, go for the Samsung. Easy choice. 6 points to the Samsung. And then 5 points to the Pixel. As much as it is a boring phone, I would say that it's doing the runner-up in North America. So 5 points for the Pixel. Next, 4 points for the Oppo, because I don't know how OnePlus is gonna, come to terms with ending operations. ColorOS, pretty good phone. Would rate that as number 4 with 4 points. Then third place for OnePlus, essentially kind of mirroring Oppo. I'll give 3 points to the OnePlus. And then lastly, wrapping up 2 points with the Xiaomi, because it is doing a lot more in the feature department compared to Vivo. So gotta call that out at least. And then lastly, 1 point to the Vivo. Great camera system, guys, but honestly, kind of a boring phone in terms of features. And Origin OS has just been adopted with some of these flagship phones. So we'll see how that plays out. And so there we have the ranking system, guys. And with this ranking, I hope to give you guys a view of how a phone, is just overall. And to be honest, guys, as much as the Samsung is not my go-to choice, like I said, I either go for Oppo or OnePlus. Based off that score, the Samsung in North America is quite honestly the best phone if you're an average consumer. It's going to be the safest, maybe not the most flashiest in some ways, but still the best phone that I can recommend.